Because we're going to start now with Geezer Butler, founder, member, bass guitarist and chief lyricist of Black Sabbath, the Birmingham band which from, the early 70s onwards pioneered, you could say invented, heavy metal, hard rock music, which created a following all around the world. They created music like this. Now, Geezer, having written the words to big hits like Paranoid, which you've just heard a bit of, you've now decided to write your life story in book form, named after another of your tracks, Into the Void. So why did you want to write this now?
Mainly because when my mum and dad died, I always thought of millions of questions that I should have asked them when they were alive.
Yes.
So when the pandemic hit, I thought, I'm going to do a memoir so that my grandkids know exactly what happened in my life.
Right.
And,
some of your stories, maybe your grandkids... I don't know how old your grandkids
when they're 18 plus. So I did the memoir. Then my wife read it at the end of that, and she said, you should publish this as a book.
One of the stories is about you meeting her. You've been married for, is it 40 years?
43 years,
but
yeah.
You met how? Just describe them.
We did this gig. I was touring on this bus, and the bus was in a terrible state. Nobody ever cleaned it, so I thought, I'm just going to fly today. And I flew to St. Louis, where the gig was. And when I got off the plane, my wife, Gloria, was waiting for her friend to come off the plane. Yeah. And I looked at her, and I just instantly fell in love. She got into her car. I told the limo driver to follow her. And we pulled up at a traffic light, and I says, we're doing a gig tonight, do you want to come? And she turned up that night, and that was it.
Because you mentioned the what you're travelling was so smelly, because several of your band members don't seem to wash, or they do things here, there and everywhere.
Well, Bill, the drummer, at that time, he's totally clean and sober now, but he used to wake up on the bus, down a bottle of vodka, and then puke all over the place and never clean it up. And after 2 weeks or something, I was like, oh, God, I could hardly breathe on there. And so that was, I got on the plane.
And that's in addition to Ozzy Osbourne, who makes a lot of appearances. But I don't know how to put this delicately. His idea of a joke or revenge seems to be to pee or worse.
Or number two.
Yes, yeah. in various locations. At any point did you think, what on earth is going on here? This is going to be a disaster.
No, well, I first met Ozzy when I went round to his house answering this advert that he'd put in the local music shop. And I went round to his house, and he wasn't in. And then he literally lived 2 streets away from my house in Aston. Yeah. And that night he came round, there was a knock on the door. My brother went to open the door, and he went, hey, there's something at the door for you.
Yeah.
And I went, what do you mean, something? And I went to the door, and there was Ozzy, skinhead, with his dad's working gown on, a chimney brush over his shoulder, a sneaker on a lead, dog lead, and no shoes on. He said, I'm the singer. And he says, and I've got my own PA. And I went, OK, that's it. You got your own PA, you're in.
And little did you realise that was your passport to fame and fortune eventually. But as in all rock star memoirs, if I may say so, there's generally a few chapters when you've sold millions of records, but you mysteriously have no money at all. Yeah,
we didn't have an accountant, and we kept asking the manager at the time. We've sold millions of albums, we've done millions of sell-out tours.
Yeah.
And we've got like $1,000 in the bank each. And where's the accountant? And he goes, they're coming next week. And he kept saying that to us. And eventually we knew that, the money disappeared.
But why didn't you take charge? Because you had trained as an accountant.
And supposed to, yeah.
You didn't last very long in the job because you didn't really take to it. But you had the financial and numerical skills you could have applied.
Not that kind of money, no. But when I was at training to be an accountant, they used to send me out to get newspapers and cigarettes and anything but telling me how to do accountancy.
Yeah.
So that didn't go very far.
You're quite sort of ambivalent whether you should accept the title of having invented heavy metal music, your band, because it was a term of abuse when it was first.
Well, yeah, it first came about. We were in America, and we did this gig, and the review was, this isn't music, it's just like a load of heavy metal being smashed together.
Yeah.
And then that somehow filtered over to England, and the English press picked it up and called the music heavy metal.
And in a way, it was heavy metal because Tony Iommi's fingers were damaged by heavy metal, by metalwork.
He worked in a factory, I think, assembling typewriters, and the guillotine came down, cut the ends of his fretting fingers off.
As you make the point that all these, the way you toured in America and things going on, it's not a million miles from Spinal Tap, the brilliant movie.
We thought it was based on us.
Well, it isn't one thing actually based on you. The whole Stonehenge scene.
Yeah.
What happened in your case with Stonehenge?
They claim that it wasn't based on our thing, but what happened with us, we did this massive big stage set, and the tour manager came up with the idea of having Stonehenge as the backdrop.
Replicas, obviously.
So the tour manager wrote it down in feet, and he sent it off to be made, and they thought it was metres. And it was so big it wouldn't fit in anywhere.
So in Spinal Tap, they went the other way. It was feet, and they made it inches, so they were ludicrously small. But you had almost full-size Stonehenge
Bigger than Stonehenge.
Bigger than...
we actually offered it to them because we didn't know what to do with it, so it was called Stonehenge. And said, "Do you want a replica?" And then, "Oh no, it's too big."
Well, did you ever think, as this was going on, because you started making, plenty of money, but then there were, personnel changes and it's quite a lot of falling outs in this. Did you ever think to yourself, "God, I wish I'd stuck to being an accountant"?
No.
You yourself got into quite a lot of fights and things. You damaged your fingers hitting a TV.
Yeah, that was in Japan. Yeah. And,
well, that doesn't excuse it.
And make a lot of TVs in Japan, though, don't they? And they're very hard.
And I was living on peanuts and Coca-Cola because I'm strict vegan, and I couldn't find anything to eat in Japan. It was all like chickens and everything.
So that must have been quite hard touring in the good old days, if I may call them that.
I literally lived on baked potatoes and crisps.
So if you had a drink on top of that when you hadn't eaten very much, then
in Japan, the promoter gave us this bottle of sake.
Yeah.
But it was like the top end. It had all these gold flakes in it. So I drank the whole thing, including the gold flakes. Turned the TV on. I was just dying to watch something on TV, and it was just sumo wrestling.
Yeah.
So I just punched the TV for some reason, which is a great thing to do when you're a bass player. Broke my finger.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole variety of substances mentioned here. Do you ever get worried about it in that you're living in America, your right to live there? Sometimes they're a bit, they impose rules.
Well, I stopped doing it as soon as my first child was born. I knocked all the drugs on the head. And then I became American resident after that.
Anyway, look, I didn't even ask you why you're called Geezer, because it sounds more like a London name that comes from your brother.
My brother, yeah.
Yeah, so you'd be happy with that name, Geezer Butler. Into the Void, I can thoroughly recommend it if you want a classic rock star memoir. It's got everything in there you could possibly want. Yeah. So Into the Void, From Birth to Black Sabbath and Beyond, is out now.